Hello everyone. In this video we are going to revise invoice and other documents. Now, what is the time limit to issue an invoice? This we had come across even in time of supply. Say suppose we are dealing with goods industry. The time limit to issue invoice if supply involves movement, date of removal. If supply does not involve movement, date of making available. If there is a sale on approval basis, date of acceptance or 6 months from the date of removal. When we talk about continuous supply of goods, in such cases, statement or payment as the case may be. For service industry, in case it is a case where continuous supply of service is there, check whether payment date is ascertainable, not ascertainable, or based on completion of an event. If payment date is ascertainable, then date mentioned in the contract. If payment date is not ascertainable, date when you get the payment. If payment date is based on completion of an event, date of completion of each event. And for a normal service, invoice to be issued within 30 days from the date of completion. This 30 days is replaced by 45 days in case of banks, financial institutions and insurance companies. Now, what are the details which you are required to mention on an invoice? You are obviously required to mention name, address of the supplier, address of the recipient. Now when we talk about name and address of the recipient, it is required only when the value exceeds 50,000. GST-IN of the supplier and recipient, description, tax, value, place of supply. It is description, tax, value, place of supply and GST-IN. If one of these 5 details are not there in the invoice, you cannot take ITC. Then you have signature. It could be a digital signature as well. You have total value, whether tax is payable under RCM. That is also required to be mentioned on an invoice. Harmonized system of nomenclature or service accounting code. That is HSN or SAC. For your May 21 exams up to 1.5 crore, no need to mention HSN. 1.5 crore to 5 crore, 2 digits are sufficient. More than 5 crore, 4 digits are sufficient. Now, later on, government has also proposed that from 1st April, these are going to change. But for May 21, the standard continues. Okay. Coming to various types of documents. The first type of documents which we will be analyzing is revised invoice. Remember one thing, an invoice once issued cannot be revised except in one special case. And what is that special case? From the effective date till the date of grant of registration, in between these two dates, between the effective date of registration and grant of registration, you wouldn't have added your GST identification number because you get your GST identification number as on grant of registration. So between these two dates, you can issue a revised invoice adding your GST identification number. And you have to issue a revised invoice within 30 days from the date of grant of GST registration. Plus, if it's a B2B transaction, you will obviously issue a separate revised invoice to each customer so that your customers can take ITC. But B2C transaction, government says you can issue a consolidated revised invoice. Now when we say you can issue a consolidated revised invoice, there is one exception to this. Any B2C transaction which is interstate, more than 2.5 lakh, in such cases, that particular invoice has to be reported separately. Because even in GST returns, any interstate transaction more than 2.5 lakh to a consumer, government wants to know these information separately. That's called as B2C large. And that's why it has to be reported separately. Clear? Okay. This was the first document. Then we have a document which is bill of supply. Bill of supply is issued by a composition dealer or it is issued by a registered person for exempted goods or services. Registered person for exempted goods or services. Now this was causing a lot of difficulty because say suppose I am supplying both taxable and exempt goods. For taxable goods invoice, for exempt goods bill of supply. The government came up with one more document called as invoice cum bill of supply. Now, this invoice cum bill of supply, a registered person can issue who is supplying both taxable goods as well as exempted goods or services. Okay, sir. Then there is a concept of consolidated tax invoice. Now, what is this consolidated tax invoice? A consolidated tax invoice, say suppose there's a small store. There are small purchases, 10 rupees, 15 rupees, and a person keeps selling some small products. In such case, is it practically possible to issue invoice for each and every sale? The answer is no. So government has said that if three conditions are satisfied, all such transactions, you can issue a single consolidated tax invoice at the end of each day. So at the end of each day, for all such small transactions, you can issue a single consolidated tax invoice. What are those three conditions? 1. Less than 200 rupees. Plus, it is to an unregistered person. Plus, recipient does not require invoice. All the three conditions needs to be satisfied. Only for such transaction, you can consolidate them. Less than 200. Be very careful. Institute can test you on MCQs with exactly 200. So, less than 200, unregistered person, recipient does not require invoice. In such cases, all such transactions at the end of the day, don't forget this also, at the end of the day, you can combine it. Okay. Thereafter, there is a document called as receipt voucher. What's the use of receipt voucher? Receipt voucher is basically when you receive an advance. See, some cases, when you receive an advance, you raise an invoice as well. Now, in case you have raised an invoice, then receipt voucher might not be required. You can issue it along with it, but if you have raised an invoice, that invoice should suffice. Some cases, you refund that advance. Now, when you refund that advance as a supplier, you have to issue a refund voucher. But tell me one thing, people. When you talk about receipt voucher or refund voucher, when you receive an advance, receipt voucher, when you refund it, refund the advance because the other person has not taken the service, that time you will issue a refund voucher. Now tell me one thing, if you have issued the invoice earlier and now you are refunding it, if you have issued an invoice, now you are refunding it, in that case, you will issue a credit note because you are now refunding the amount based on an invoice. That's also clarified by CBIC, saying that if an invoice was issued, in that case, what you can do is you can raise a credit note and adjust your tax liability on output. Okay. Say suppose while taking the advance, you don't know why he has paid an advance and what is the nature of the transaction. Government says, if you don't know the tax rate, then I will assume it to be 18%. I will assume it to be interstate supply. The government is very clear. You can't play smart with government. You can't say that I don't know why the other person has given an advance, so the rate is not ascertainable. Government says if you don't know, I know it. It would be 18% and would be regarded as interstate supply. Don't mix up this receipt voucher with voucher which is there in time of supply. Voucher in time of supply not identifiable. If a voucher is non-identifiable, in such cases, there the law says the time of supply will be date of redemption. That is a voucher which is used for purchase of goods or services. This receipt voucher is for advance payment which you have received. Clear with this? Yes. Now, receipt voucher done, refund voucher done. All these documents are issued by the supplier. Coming to a document which is issued by the recipient, that is payment voucher. Payment voucher is the only document which is issued by the recipient while he is liable to pay tax under RCM. And it might also happen that while you are liable to pay tax under RCM, the supplier is unregistered. If the supplier is unregistered, then one payment voucher. Second, you have to issue an invoice on yourself on behalf of your supplier. That also has to be done. If the supplier is unregistered and it is a case of reverse charge mechanism. So the moment it's a case of reverse charge mechanism, first you will issue a payment voucher, get a sign from the supplier, and on behalf of that supplier, you also have to issue an invoice. Clear? Okay. So this was about payment voucher. Then coming to delivery challan. See, whenever there is movement of goods and you are not raising an invoice, whenever there is movement of goods and you are not raising an invoice. See, not raising invoice could be for various aspects. It could be for a reason where there is no supply. Say suppose there is a transfer from one branch in the state and to another branch in the same state. In such case, it's not a supply. There is no need to generate an invoice. That time, it has to be accompanied with a delivery challan. So, movement of goods and not raising an invoice. It could also happen that goods are moving in installments. So, when goods are moving in installments, now, first time you would have sent the invoice. Second time when goods are moving, it would be accompanied with a delivery challan. Or you are sending the goods for job work. Again, there is movement of goods. You will accompany it with a delivery challan. There might also be a case where, in case of liquid gas, what happens is, once recipient receives the quantity, based on that quantity you raise the bill. So while sending it, what will you issue? You will issue a delivery challan. Clear with this? Yes? Okay. Now very important documents. Debit note and credit note. See, credit note is basically for 4 purposes. Under GST, both these documents are issued by the supplier. You must understand one thing, that credit note is similar to your accounting credit note, but debit note is not. Debit note here is for a completely different purpose. See, credit note can be issued for sales return. What will happen? Whenever there is a sales return, what will happen? My output as a supplier will reduce. Again, my output as a supplier will reduce and ITC of the recipient will reduce. Again. Whenever credit note is issued, supplier's liability will reduce and ITC of my recipient will also reduce. Because what happens when an invoice is issued? Think, when an invoice is issued, supplier's output increases and recipient's ITC increases because for him it is purchase. Correct? So for sales return, what would happen? Opposite. What is opposite? Supplier's output will reduce, ITC of recipient will reduce. Sometimes it might so happen that you have mentioned more in your invoice. So when value mentioned in invoice is more or excess value mentioned, in such cases you will issue a credit note to reduce value. Same thing can happen to reduce tax. Say suppose you have charged excess tax, to reduce that you will raise a credit note. Or there is a deficient supply of goods or services. Now, even in case of discounts, where discount is known at the time of supply, post-supply discount known at the time of supply, ITC is reversed by recipient. In that case, what happens? Supplier reduces his output, the recipient reduces his ITC, which is nothing but reversal. Remember, this is the concept of credit note. So, credit note, sales return. Output of the supplier reduces, ITC of the recipient also reduces. Now, what will happen if I have charged tax of 12 on my invoice, but it had to be 18. I have charged 12, but it had to be 18. Now, how do I increase it? You increase tax by issuing the debit note. Remember, this debit note is never for purchase return. purchase return debit note is accounting debit note, not for us. In IDT, debit note is issued to increase tax or to increase value, and the treatment of debit note is same as invoice. What happens in invoice? Output of the supplier increases and ITC of the recipient also increases. Same way, debit note, output increases, ITC also increases. Sir, but what if the question says debit note issued under accounting for purchase return? That means if it is purchase return, in that case you will reduce the ITC. If you have received that, in that case your output will reduce. So remember one thing, for invoice, output of the supplier will increase and ITC of the recipient will also increase. Correct? So depends on for whom you are solving the question. If you are solving from the supplier's angle, his output will increase. ITC, the other person's ITC increases. Credit note is opposite. Debit note is same as invoice. Just remember this much. You'll be able to crack it. Now what is the time limit to issue credit note? The last date to issue credit note is due date for filing September month return after the end of the financial year, or date of filing annual return, whichever is earlier. That means same as time limit for taking ITC. So any credit note with the tax has to be issued within this time. If you issue it after that, in that case it will be a financial credit note. Financial credit note meaning there would be no tax implication on that. It would just be a adjustment of values between supplier and recipient. Now, there is one important circular in this, and that circular is relating to medicines. Expired medicines. Government gave two options. One, treat it as fresh supply. If it is treated as fresh supply, retailer or wholesaler will bill to manufacturer. The retailer or wholesaler billing to manufacturer and manufacturer destroying it, manufacturer will not get ITC. Correct? Okay. Second was issue credit note. Manufacturer will issue because manufacturer was the supplier. Manufacturer will issue credit note. If he issues credit note, it can be with the tax or without tax, doesn't matter. But manufacturer has to reverse ITC taken on such destroyed expired medicines at the time of making such medicines. So that's the difference. Fresh supply, retailer or wholesaler charging, you cannot take ITC of that. But if credit note is issued, that manufacturer has to calculate what was the ITC which he took to make these medicines, and based on that he has to reverse ITC. Clear with this? Yes. And one important amendment which has come for May 2021 exams is e-invoice. Listen to me very carefully. What's the concept of e-invoice? First of all, this is nothing where you generate it on the government portal. No. You have your software. You generate the invoice as you normally generate the invoice. Then there are some fields which are mandatory fields. Those details which are mandatory, you have to send it to one of the e-invoice portals. There are 10 portals: einvoice1.gst.gov.in, 2, 3 till 10. So there are 10 e-invoice portals. You have to send this data. Send this data in a particular form, JSON file. This has to be sent to e-invoice portal. Once it is sent to this e-invoice portal, this e-invoice portal will throw up a IRN, invoice reference number. This invoice reference number will be embedded in a QR code. You have seen QR code. This invoice reference number is embedded in the QR code. Later, when officer wants to check the validity of this e-invoice, he can just scan. Once he scans, he will be able to check whether this e-invoice is valid or not, or it's correctly generated. Plus, all the data now is stored with government. You cannot change it now. You cannot manipulate it now. So invoice reference number which is generated, this you have to add it to your invoice which you have generated through the software, and then it becomes a e-invoice. That's it. Then it becomes a e-invoice. Now, whom is it applicable to? It is applicable for your exams, that is May 21. It's applicable only when turnover is more than 500 crores. And this came into effect from 1st October 2020 for any person who had a turnover of more than 500 crores in 17-18, 18-19, 19-20. Any of those years, if you had a turnover of more than 500 crores, you have to generate e-invoice, mandatory, no option available. This e-invoice is only for B2B transactions, debit notes, credit notes, and not for B2C transactions. Okay. So this is about e-invoicing. Are there some sectors which are exempted? Yes. Not applicable to SEZ. Not applicable for transportation of goods industry, that is one sector is covered, GPA. Transportation of passengers, everyone is covered. Thereafter cinema, that is multiplex houses, again they are also not required to generate e-invoices. These are the persons to whom the requirement of generating e-invoice will not be applicable. Otherwise, yes, if the turnover is more than 500 crores in any of the preceding financial years, then you have to generate e-invoice. Clear? Yes. There was a relaxation provided for October month that you can generate the invoice within 30 days. So first for October month there was a relief. Again, that relaxation is again something which can be asked in the examination. Otherwise, other than that, there is nothing. Plus, once e-invoice is generated, you are not required to create a duplicate or triplicate copy. That one e-invoice is sufficient. You can take various printouts of that and keep one for your record, give one to the transporter, send one to the recipient. And the moment you do this, the data from here directly goes in your GSTR1 to make your GST returns. Yes. Okay. Just some brief, you can take a screenshot of this, so that this is the amendment regarding manner of e-invoice. So e-invoice, who has to generate it? A notified class of persons. Any invoice not generated using this shall not be treated as an invoice. So it has to be generated if required. If you are a person who requires to generate it, then if you don't generate it, it's not an invoice at all. Who is the notified person? Any person whose turnover is more than 500 crores. SEZ units, insurance company, banking company, goods transport agency, passenger services and multiplex only to generate it, and one relaxation. This much is sufficient for your exams. Remember this invoice reference number clearly. Yes? Okay. See you in the next video.